Ciao, I'm Mario, a Swiss car guy on YouTube, and this is my new ride. I wanted something a bit slower than the GT-R, and I think this baby delivers. And it's French, so it has a certain je ne sais quoi, or maybe a certain je ne sais quoi me fait acheter cette voiture. And this thing is basically like a Ferrari. Today I'm driving my new ride. And yes, I mentioned before that I thought my Nissan GT-R is too fast for Switzerland and that I had to get something slower. And honestly, it doesn't get much slower than this very nice Peugeot 108. And now you might think, Mario, why would you want to get a Peugeot 108? Well, first of all, it's slower. This is important. Second of all, this car is basically a Ferrari Enzo. You see, it has an automated manual transmission with pedals on the steering wheel, which means you can drive as if it was a Ferrari, and then you shift up. Whoa! I mean, you get so much Ferrari feeling for so little money, because this car is 14,000 Swiss francs new. The car has 69 horsepower, nice, and honestly, on a car that weighs just around 900 kilograms, it's all right. I mean, let's be honest, it's certainly not as fast as GT-R or, you know, fast in any way imaginable, but this is a city car, and for driving around town, driving around the city, it feels positively nippy, and this is actually all you can expect from such a small car. I've once taken it on the motorway, and usually I'm used to getting onto the motorway, accelerating and then going to the left lane and overtake everybody. But in this case, the car does not really allow you to overtake anybody because it's simply not powerful enough. Now you might say, well, automated transmissions, they are stupid. Either get a proper manual or get a proper automatic with a torque converter. Well, yes, I agree. I personally like torque converter automatics, but in small cars there isn't actually that much choice, and knowing me, you know I like an automatic, right? So this is the choice I have. It's an automated manual, and honestly, it's fine for what it does. If you drive it like a manual, which means when you expect the car to upshift, you just go off the throttle, and the changes are quite smooth. It even does a kick down, which basically just increases the noise, and that's it, that's what it does. But I have to say, I'm very, very happy with this car. The only thing that annoys me, now that I have this nice 69 horsepower car, in comparison my Lexus feels a bit too fast. So I might have to replace that as well. Okay. You probably guessed it, that this isn't my car. Yeah, I mean, I wanted something with less horsepower than the GT-R, something that's slower than a GT-R, but this thing is just slow. It's too slow for me. As you can probably guess from the color, this is more likely to be a woman's car than mine. Not that personally I'm against purple cars, just I don't really get it that much. In fact, this is my mom's car, and my mom bought this car new because for the first time in her life at 64 years old, she wanted to have a new car, something she never had before. Even though I advised her to get a used car, because my mom, I reckon, drives around 2,000 kilometers a year, and the new car sort of doesn't make sense because after 10 years the car will have like 20,000 kilometers on the odometer and be old. So my advice was to get a 1 or 2 year old car with like 90,000 kilometers, a car that was relatively new but had driven quite a lot, so that if she drove it for 10 years, then at the end it would just have like 100,000 kilometers and would still be reliable, would still be good. But my mom wanted to have a new car for once in her life, which, let's be honest, as car guys, we all know car buying decisions are not always rational. But buying the car new also meant my mom got to choose the color. And she chose this one, which I don't know what it's called, but we in the family, we call this car the Melanzana. and melanzane is Italian for eggplant, obviously because of the nice color. And this is basically what I reckon is a typical pensioner's car, because it's the cheapest, smallest car you can get that has an automated or automatic transmission. Automatic transmissions are not very common in small cars, therefore most of them have something like this, a single clutch automated manual, which to be honest I think works fine. I have once had one of these as a manual, as a rental car for 2 weeks, and I have to say I think the manual is worse. Even the single clutch automatic I think is better than the manual, because these cars have basically no power. You are revving them out, you are shifting all the time, and it's not such a nice shifter. And at that point I'd rather just, concentrate on doing other things. Because what's also interesting, that this being the cheapest automatic car available at that time, this is also pretty much a base model Peugeot 108. And by base model, I'm actually already quite impressed with the equipment on this car. Of course, it has air conditioning, because every car needs to have it now. It has a radio, it doesn't have a screen, doesn't have a rear view camera, but it has a radio, it plays MP3s from USB, it has Bluetooth, it has Bluetooth audio streaming, it has Bluetooth hands-free for calling, which works really nice, by the way. And the stereo in itself is actually quite okay. I mean, it's not as nice as the Mark Levinson stereo in my Lexus, but considering this is an economy car, and there you can see this is also a small model that is aimed at young people, and young people like good stereos, but I reckon it's good enough for me that I would not want to upgrade it if I actually owned this car. And of course my mom doesn't want to upgrade because she doesn't even care. But also it has color-coded bumpers, it has daytime running lights, and it has what I would define as a leather steering wheel with some controls on the steering wheel. So this is quite a neat car. And this being an automatic, of course, you also have pedals on the steering wheel, which is just like a Ferrari Enzo, just without all the power and all the Ferrari-ness of the car. Of course, there are also versions that are not as basic as this, that they have like a folding roof and they have rear view cameras and the screen. This car doesn't have it. This is basic transportation, but with, the least amenities you need today. This is a pensioner's car in more than one way, because you see, my mother bought this car new in 2015, and now in 2021 it just has 7,900 kilometers on the odometer, which means that once my mom gets rid of this car, it will basically have had no mileage done, because she doesn't drive it a lot. And even of these 7,900 kilometers, I'm pretty sure I've done at least 2,500, because sometimes I borrow this car and I drive it because the car needs to be driven. Cars that don't get driven tend to break. And now you might say, well, especially this is a French car. I mean, Mario, why would you let your mom buy a French car? Well, you see, there are several reasons for that. First one is my mechanic, the one whose kids I put through college with all the repairs on my cars. He used to have a Honda dealership, he still has it, but then he acquired also a Peugeot dealership some years ago, and I thought it was very convenient for my mom to have a local mechanic who can take care of her if something breaks, hence Peugeot. The second reason is that while this may be a Peugeot, it actually sort of isn't. Because as you may know, the Peugeot 108, the Citroën C1 and the Toyota Aygo are the three Romanian triplets. They are all built in the same factory in Romania, and they are basically the same car, just a bit badge engineered to be slightly different from each other. But under everything, under the skin, this is a Toyota Aygo, which I realize is the cheapest Toyota there is, but it's still a Toyota. The 3-cylinder engine up front is a Toyota engine. It's actually, I believe, the same engine that was used in the Toyota IQ, and this gives me a certain confidence that this will be a reliable car. And actually in 5 years it has had absolutely nothing, but then again it has not even been driven for 8,000 kilometers. But this is a basic car. Even though it has a few amenities which are nice, the automatic I think is a nice amenity, especially for my mom. My mom actually didn't want an automatic because she had driven manual cars all of her driving life. But since she got older and sometimes she's had a bit of problem with her knees, meaning she couldn't use her left leg, we insisted on her getting an automatic car. So I think even if she has trouble walking at some point, she'll still be able to drive this car, hence the automatic. Typical pensioner spec, right? But the nice thing about this car is that it's very basic. And there is something nice about basic cars because everything is manual. Okay, it has electric windows, which I don't know if cars with manual windows are still made today, but this is a basic car. If you look, the rear hatch is nothing more than a glass plane. It doesn't have any metal around it, and in the inside you see metal because not everything is clad up. It also means the car is light. This car weighs 900 kilograms empty, and coupled with the 69 horsepower, it sounds like it should go quite well, but it doesn't really. I mean, it's nippy, it drives all right, but we are far from a sporty car. And also the handling in this thing, the handling is a bit questionable, I would say. This being a car that is relatively short, relatively narrow, and relatively tall to give 4 passengers enough space in here. And yes, this is a 4-seater, it's not a 5-seater. The handling is not that great because the car is, of course, it's, I think, comfortable enough for a small car. It does kind of wallow about. So if you take a corner with a bit of gusto, it's scary. It's really scary, and the ESP will kick in and prevent you from having an accident. You hear the tire screaming. But it's actually fun driving this car because you're basically driving it at the limit all the time. Flat out, yeah, you can almost do the speed limit in this car. This car is so much like a real sports car. I mean, it has pedal shifters on the steering wheel. It has seats with integrated headrests like a Porsche 911, and those seats are also like striped a bit like a Golf GTI. So this is actually quite a seemingly sporty car that just isn't very sporty. But then again, I think if you want something to pot around town, they have nothing that can break. They are made by Toyota, so they shouldn't break. It has a tiny 3-cylinder 1-liter engine that I have no idea what the fuel economy in this car is, but I reckon it's going to be awesome, especially compared to some of the other cars I tend to drive. In fact, my mom drives this car so little and the fuel economy is so good that when she has to fuel up the car, she has to remember how to do it because there's a little flap you have to pull in order to open the fuel filler cap. So yeah, my mom, I think she fills this car up once every 6 months, something like that, because this car does not get driven. My mom is not somebody who really cares about cars, so you have some wear and some dirt. This car is not as clean inside as I would like it. For example, I am not somebody who washes his car very often, but I try to keep the inside clean. So I dust it off, I clean it when I have stains and stuff like that. My mom doesn't. So for a car that doesn't get driven, it's quite dirty inside, and you also have a little marks like on the doors from where your foot hits it when you open it. Like, yeah, this is an old person's car, so not an enthusiast car. There's something to be said about these basic, low-powered, or as you may want to say, underpowered cars. If you're used, like me, to driving V8s, twin-turbo V6s, cars with 400, 500 horsepower, I think it's a good thing from time to time to drive a car like this, because it puts everything a bit into perspective, because it's very easy to get used to massive horsepower and to feel like your car is slow, and then it really takes you to drive a car like this to realize that no, your car is very fast and this is a slow car. Also, when you're driving on a motorway and you're wondering why other people do not drive fast. Do not drive up to the speed limit, especially if it's uphill somewhere. Well, if they drive a car like this, they might actually struggle to make the speed limit. So it's not like they choose to drive slowly, it's the car doesn't allow them to drive any faster. So as a car enthusiast, I think it's nice from time to time to really drive one of these. I would usually call a car like this a piece of crap in my worldview, but it's a perfectly fine car for my mom. It's been very reliable, it's been very good, it's economical, and it will last a long time. Anyway, I hope you liked this little drive of the Melanzana, my mom's purple car. And yes, if you liked this video, please leave a like. If you want to see more videos in the future, consider subscribing to my channel. And otherwise, that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. Bye. Flat out. You can't do it. This is not a fast car. Not a fast car. And even here we have a tunnel, and I'm already hating it, so awesome. Very awesome. Super awesome. Oh, I'm actually speeding. Holy